If you've ever been underestimated by your own family, this one's for you. He sat quietly through years of humiliation, pretending to struggle, while secretly holding the kind of power that could shake their entire world. But on one ordinary birthday dinner, the masks came off, and every insult finally came due. This is The Quiet Investor, a story about patience, pride, and the moment silence becomes strength. Before we begin, please take a second to support our small channel. Hit that like, tap subscribe, and drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Every click helps us grow and bring you more stories of revenge, revelation, and redemption. Now, let's begin. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't bother printing prices on the menu. If you needed to ask, you didn't belong there. Maison Solange sat in the heart of downtown Atlanta, all marble floors and hushed violins. It was supposed to be a celebration, our mother's 60th birthday, but my older sister Renee Hollis had turned it into a showcase. It has to be somewhere refined, she declared 3 weeks earlier on our family group call. A night worthy of Mama. What she meant was somewhere expensive enough to make me squirm. Somewhere she could remind everyone that she was the family success story. I took a seat near the end of the long table, wearing the same charcoal blazer I'd owned for 6 years. Around me shimmered gold chains, tailored jackets, and that soft perfume of money trying too hard to smell effortless. Renee wore a copper-colored Versace dress that probably cost more than a semester of rent. Her husband, Andre Thorne, an attorney who liked to quote his own billing rate, flashed a Cartier watch every time he lifted his glass. Even my younger brother, Micah, had turned up crisp in a designer suit. I looked like the only one who still paid attention to clearance racks, and that was intentional. So, little brother, Renee said when the second bottle of wine arrived, and $350 Cabernet that Andre ordered like he owned the vineyard. Still doing that online hustle of yours? The table went silent. It was the kind of pause my family specialized in, right before one of Renee's polite assassinations. Still doing it, I said, unbothered. Miles runs a good business, Mom offered gently. She never understood what I did, but she always tried to defend it. Renee's laugh rang like glass. Mama, that's adorable, but let's be honest. She turned to me with that half-smile that mixed pity with poison. How much can you really be making from your little website thing? It's not a website, I replied evenly. It's a private equity network. Andre chuckled into his wine. Private equity? That's cute. Renee, your brother thinks he's Wall Street now. Renee patted my hand as if I were 8 again. Miles, there's no shame in trying to figure life out. You're what, 29? Most people your age are still building resumes. I could probably help you get a job at my firm. Something junior, of course. My sister was 34. She'd graduated from Howard's Business School and fast-tracked her way into a tech analytics startup called Neurospan Systems, where she now bragged about being vice president of strategy. They'd raised nearly $290 million over several rounds, and she made sure everyone within 10 feet knew it. LinkedIn posts, panels, photo ops, the full performance. What she didn't know was that I'd quietly funded her company since its first seed stage. That's generous, I said, cutting into my $65 catfish plate. But I'm doing fine where I am. Micah jumped in, eager for her approval. Come on, bro. You're still in that tiny midtown apartment. When's the upgrade coming? I like my place, I said. It was true. The 700-square-foot studio near Piedmont Park cost $1,600 a month, comfortable cover for a man secretly managing a $540 million investment portfolio. You like it because you can't afford anything bigger, Renee said, the words dripping with sweetness and contempt. Nothing wrong with being practical. Not everyone's meant to be a high earner. Andre leaned forward, clearly enjoying himself. Didn't you borrow, what, $900 from Renee last year to cover rent? That had been March 2024, during a period I'd chosen to live lean while funneling capital into 3 new ventures. I'd repaid her within 10 days, but she'd never let the memory die. I paid you back, I said quietly. Of course you did, she replied. I'm not saying you're careless, just that it's hard out there for the self-employed. The internet economy chews people up. Mom tried again. Renee, leave him be. Miles seems happy. Mama, you don't understand business, Renee said, setting down her fork like a judge about to read a verdict. If Miles's little project were thriving, we'd see results by now. Real companies grow, scale, hire. Look at us. Andre's a partner at his firm. Micah just made VP at Jackson Bank, and I help run a billion-dollar enterprise. We're building real things. Andre smirked. So, Miles, what exactly do you do again? I scout undervalued ventures and provide capital in exchange for equity, I replied evenly. Then I help them scale. Renee actually laughed. With what capital? You borrowed $900 from me. The waiter appeared with desserts, sweet potato souffle, peach cobbler, lemon tart. Another $150 onto the bill Andre insisted on covering. This is on us, Renee announced grandly. Happy birthday, Mama. And don't worry about contributing, Miles. We know things are tight. That was the moment the decision settled inside me. Not anger, not pride, just clarity. I'd endured years of subtle cruelty, but this was something new, the assumption that I couldn't pay even if I wanted to. I slipped my phone under the table and opened Cypher, my encrypted app for sensitive directives. My investment circle consisted of 3 people: Sierra Green, portfolio manager at Apex Union Holdings, Jeremiah Cole, my legal counsel, and Patricia Owens, my financial strategist. My thumbs moved fast. Emergency divestment. Full exit, Neurospan Systems. Execute across all entities. Timeline immediate. Responses arrived within seconds. Sierra. Confirming exit, Neurospan Systems. Total position $118 million across 4 entities. Jeremiah. Legal review underway. Docs within the hour. Patricia. Board disclosure in 20 minutes. Proceeding. I set my phone face down and looked up at my family, still laughing about how poor they thought I was. Renee was mid-story, talking animatedly about a recent deal she'd closed with a Fortune 500 client. They chose Neurospan over 3 competitors, she said, chin tilted high. A multi-year contract worth $5 million annually. That's what real enterprise looks like. That's what happens when you play in the big leagues. Andre raised his glass. To my brilliant wife. She actually knows how to generate value, unlike some of us chasing internet dreams. I smiled thinly. Impressive work, sis. Renee's grin widened. It is. Some people talk about entrepreneurship. I live it. My phone buzzed softly on the table. Sierra, Phase 1 executed. $36 million cleared. Patricia, entity filings complete. Board notified. Jeremiah, Series B, withdrawal processed. $41 million transferred. I sipped my water, pretending to listen as she boasted about scaling strategy and neural data models. Her voice blended into the restaurant's soft jazz while notifications slid silently across my screen, each one pulling another thread from her empire. Then Renee's phone lit up. She glanced down, frowning. It's Brian from the board, she muttered. That's strange. It's Saturday night. Andre shrugged. Better answer it. Might be good news. She excused herself, walking toward the entrance. Her heels clicked across the marble like punctuation marks in a sermon about success. Micah turned toward me, bored. So, bro, seriously, what's the 5-year plan? You can't just do your online hustle forever. Why not? I asked. Because it's not stable. No benefits. No structure. You need to get into the real world, corporate, steady pay, health insurance. The real world. I repeated. You know what I mean, he said. Something with actual status. My phone buzzed again. Sierra, final liquidation complete. $118 million withdrawn. All positions cleared. Patricia, board alert confirmed, CEO notified. Jeremiah, legal closure finalized. 0 remaining equity. Through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows, I saw Renee pacing outside. Even from inside, I could see the panic spreading across her face. Andre's phone rang next. Then Micah's. Then, surprisingly, Mom's. What on earth? Mom looked at her screen. It's Renee calling me. but she's right outside. Andre answered first. Babe, what's going on? His face shifted from curious to horrified in seconds. That can't be right. There must be a mistake. He stood up abruptly and hurried outside. Micah's phone started buzzing again. Another call from Renee. What do you mean, liquidation? He asked into the receiver, voice trembling. Who pulled out that kind of money? Mom's brows furrowed. Miles, do you know what's happening? I might, I said quietly. Through the glass, we could see Renee and Andre standing near the valet, both talking fast, both pale. Renee's gestures were sharp, almost frantic. Micah ended his call, staring down at the table. She said some big investor just dumped all their shares. Like, catastrophic level. How catastrophic? Mom asked. She said $118 million. Gone. Just gone. He swallowed. She said the board's holding an emergency meeting first thing tomorrow. A minute later, Renee and Andre stormed back inside. Her perfectly contoured face was streaked with tears, and his jaw was tight with panic. We need to go, she said breathlessly. Emergency situation. Mama, I'm so sorry, but this can't wait. What happened, baby? Mom asked, rising to her feet. Our largest investor just pulled everything. Every single dollar. $118 million. The board is losing it. Our CEO's on a plane back from London. If we can't stabilize this, the whole company might collapse. Who was the investor? I asked gently. Renee turned toward me. Some firm called Apex Union Holdings. We never even met them. They've been passive for years, then out of nowhere liquidation. All of it. Apex Union Holdings, I repeated slowly. They were your anchor investor, right? Series A through Series C. Yes. 20% of our cap table gone. Andre was already scrolling through his phone, muttering to himself. They operated through different shells, DeltaWorks, Zenith Group, Argen Capital, all managed under Apex. Nobody even knew who sat behind them. Interesting, I murmured. Those were my structures. Each one carefully layered to shield my identity while giving me absolute control. Why would they pull out like that? Mom asked, bewildered. No warning, Renee said, voice cracking. Just a formal filing with the SEC 20 minutes ago. Automated board alert. No call, no explanation. Micah looked at his phone again, eyes wide. Yo, this just hit X. Breaking. Neurospan loses $118 million anchor investor, Series D funding round in jeopardy. Renee sank into her chair like air had been sucked out of her lungs. This will destroy us. We were finalizing a $150 million round next month. But if our main investor flees, nobody else will stay. They'll think something's wrong. Even if the numbers are solid, perception runs this game. Is the company actually failing? I asked calmly. No, she said through tears. We're growing 40% year over year. Our tech works. We're profitable. She looked down at her shaking hands. But that doesn't matter anymore. Once people see an exit that size, they assume smoke means fire. Andre was on his phone now, pacing. Renee turned to me, eyes red. I'm sorry, Miles. I know I was hard on you earlier. I was stressed. I shouldn't have said those things. It was the same apology she always gave, quick, self-soothing, not sincere. It's okay, I said softly. Mom, for once, wasn't having it. No, it's not. Renee, you've been cutting your brother down for years, and I'm tired of watching it. Ma, not now. Yes, now, Mom snapped. You always talk about respect and leadership. Maybe start practicing it at home. Renee looked at her mother, guilt flickering behind panic. You're right. I'll do better. I promise. But right now, I have to fix this before everything burns down. My phone vibrated again. Sierra, stock down 15% after hours. 3 follow-on investors withdrawing $45 million. Series D, destabilizing. I glanced at the message, then back at my family. Renee, I said, voice calm but firm. Would you like to know why Apex pulled out? Renee froze mid-panic. You know why? She asked, her voice trembling. Did you hear something through your online circles? I might have, I said, meeting her eyes. But before I explain, just answer me this. You said Apex never met you personally, right? Never, she said quickly. They were quiet investors, totally hands-off. I nodded once. That's true. I prefer to keep it that way. She blinked. You prefer? What do you mean you? I pulled out my phone and tapped the Apex Union Holdings dashboard. The screen glowed blue in the candlelight. My name sat right beneath the firm's title. Principal investor, Miles D. Hollis. Total assets under management, $540,212,000. Recent transaction, Neurospan Systems. Full liquidation entity breakdown. DeltaWorks Partners, $34 million. Zenith Group LLC, $40 million. Argen Capital Trust, $29 million. Liongate Equity Fund, $15 million. Total withdrawn, $118 million. Status, complete. The table went silent. Even the violinist stopped mid-note. That's her name, Renee whispered. No, that can't be real. It's very real, I said quietly. I asked you for $900 last year as a test. You failed it spectacularly. Andre stared at the screen. You're saying you're the one who? Yes, I said. I've been your largest investor since Neurospan's seed round. Micah leaned forward, eyes wide. You put up all that money? But you've been living in a one-bedroom and driving a 10-year-old Nissan. It's called perspective, I said. Helps me see who respects me for the person, not the wallet. Renee stumbled back a step, her voice breaking. So for 4 years, you've been sitting in my meetings, watching my reports, judging me. Correct, I said. I've sat through every quarterly review, every pitch deck, every discussion about scaling your so-called innovation platform. I watched you boast about leadership while funding the whole operation from behind the curtain. Her face drained of color. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to see how you'd treat people you believed couldn't help you, I said. Turns out, you treat them terribly. Andre rubbed his temple. This is insane. You've been worth $500 million and living like a college intern? I started when I was 21, I said calmly. Sold my first mobile data analytics startup for $10 million. Invested most of it into early-stage black-owned tech firms. Some hit big, others didn't. By 24, I was managing over $200 million. By 27, I passed 500. I'm 30 now. Mom's voice trembled, but it wasn't fear. It was awe. Miles, baby, why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted love, not praise. I wanted to be family, not a trophy. Renee sat down hard, mascara streaking down her cheeks. You've been investing in my company, the same one I kept bragging about at family dinners? Every funding round, I said. When you raised your first $50 million, I contributed 34 through DeltaWorks. When you expanded your Series B, I added 40 through Zenith. When the market dipped during the pandemic, I stepped in again. Each time, you thanked the faceless investor who believed in your vision. That investor was me. Her breath hitched. Miles, please. You can't just walk away. You'll ruin everything. 200 employees. I didn't ruin anything, I said softly. I withdrew from leadership that values status over substance. Mom reached for her daughter's hand, but Renee pulled away, shaking. I've spent my entire life building this career. You can't destroy it over dinner. I met her eyes. Then maybe you shouldn't have tried to destroy me over dinner. Andre spoke up, trying to sound calm, but failing. Be reasonable. Pulling this kind of capital sends a message. The market'll think something's wrong. There's something wrong, I said. You all just didn't notice it was moral, not financial. My phone buzzed again. Sierra, stock down 19%. 3 major investors follow Apex's exit. $50 million retracted. Total valuation cut by 40%. Jeremiah, CEO requesting meeting. Immediate. Renee's phone chimed too. She looked down and made a strangled sound. This can't be happening. Our valuation just dropped from $900 million to $540. Micah exhaled sharply. That's a bloodbath. Andre muttered. This'll hit Forbes by morning. Renee's shoulders shook as tears finally took over. Please, Miles, I'll apologize. I'll make it right. You don't need to apologize to me, I said, standing. You need to learn from it. You built your empire on image. I built mine on patience. Mom whispered, Miles, what are you going to do now? I'm going to rebuild trust, just not here. Renee's mascara had bled into thin, desperate lines. She wasn't the polished executive anymore. She looked like a frightened person watching her carefully curated world collapse in real time. Miles, please, she said hoarsely. Just talk to our CEO. We can fix this. I'll give you board seats, shares, anything. Just reverse the liquidation. I shook my head. You don't understand, Renee. This isn't a negotiation. It's a lesson. Andre set his phone down, his composure cracking. You're destroying a company, man. There are people depending on those paychecks, families. I'm not destroying anything, I said calmly. I'm reallocating resources to leadership that knows the value of respect. The only thing collapsing is arrogance. Mom was silent for a long moment, then finally whispered, Baby, I know you're hurt, but they're right. There are innocent people involved. That's exactly why it matters, I said. When arrogance sits at the top, innocent people always pay the price. Maybe now she'll understand that titles mean nothing if you can't treat people like human beings. My phone vibrated again. Sierra. Series D collapsed completely. $130 million withdrawn by investors. Neurospan valuation cut to $520 million. Patricia, CEO requesting urgent call. Board wants clarification. I turned the phone face up for Renee to see. Her breath hitched as she read the message. That's a 40% drop, she whispered. Our stock options, they're worthless now. We may not survive this quarter. I nodded. That's what happens when your investors lose confidence in your integrity, not your numbers. Andre leaned across the table. So, what? You're punishing her for being mean at dinner? I met his gaze, steady and unblinking. No. I'm punishing the habit of measuring worth through status. She mocked a man who built her career from the shadows. She dismissed someone who gave her everything. That's not just bad manners, it's bad business. Renee put her face in her hands. How do I fix it? You can't, I said. The filings are public. The liquidation is done. Every cent has already been moved. Micah's voice was quiet. Moved where? I tapped my phone and turned it toward him. A new list of allocations appeared. Southwind Biolabs, founded by a single mother who taught herself genomics after losing her hospital job. Bright Path Renewables, run by 3 women rejected by traditional investors. New Fleet Logistics, launched by a former warehouse supervisor who built an algorithm for supply chain efficiency. Civic Pulse AI, developed by a dropout from a community college who built predictive policing software to reduce bias. That's where the money went, I said. People who don't get invited to tables like this. People who don't wear designer suits, but build things that matter. Mom stared at me, eyes full of both pride and sorrow. People like you. Not like me, I corrected softly. People who never got the chance to prove they're better than how the world sees them. Across from me, Renee fumbled through her bag, whispering into her phone, calls to board members, frantic attempts to salvage what was left. Andre joined her, murmuring damage control phrases, stabilize perception, reassure the investors, temporary setback. But both of them looked small now, executives trapped in their own illusion. Micah sat silently, his earlier arrogance replaced by quiet shock. I can't believe you lived like that, man. The cheap apartment, the old car, all while managing $500 million. It was necessary, I said. If people knew, they'd treat me like an ATM, not a person. I needed to see who they were without the money filter. He swallowed hard. We failed that test, didn't we? You did, I said simply. But you can still learn from it. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I always knew you were destined for something bigger, she said softly. But I wish you'd told me. Not for the money, for the truth. I know, I said. But you never mocked me. You didn't understand my work, but you defended me anyway. That was enough. Renee returned to the table, trembling, her voice small. The CEO wants to talk to you personally. He'll give you whatever you want if you just come back. Please, Miles, for the company. I stood slowly, folding my napkin. I don't want control, I said. I want you to understand something fundamental. You can't humiliate people and then expect them to save you when it matters. She nodded, tears falling fast. I get it. I swear I do. I hope so, I said. Because tomorrow morning your company opens 40% lower. Employees will panic. Some will quit. Competitors will move in. You'll spend the next year rebuilding what arrogance tore down tonight. Renee sobbed into her hands. I deserve this, she whispered. Maybe, I said, but your team doesn't. Remember that before you make them pay for your pride. Andre rose, pleading. Miles, be fair. Don't make this permanent. I already was fair, I replied. For 7 years. I slipped my wallet from my pocket and laid cash for my untouched dessert beside the empty wine glass. I think that's enough lessons for one evening, I said. Mom stood immediately. Miles, wait. I turned, softer for her. I'll call you Mama. I promise. She nodded, eyes glistening. I believe you. I'm proud of you, not for the money, but for the man you turned out to be. I smiled faintly. That means more than anything. Renee stumbled to her feet, clutching her phone like it was life support. Miles, please. I know I was awful to you. I was arrogant and cruel. But the employees, they'll lose everything if you don't reverse this. You're right, I said, pausing at the doorway. They don't deserve it. But you should have remembered that when you were leading them, and when you were humiliating the man who kept their paychecks flowing. She pressed a hand to her heart. What do I do now? Lead better, I said simply, and learn what leadership really means. I handed her a card, my real one, Apex Union Holdings embossed in silver. If you ever want to understand what happened tonight, look at that name and remember how many board meetings I've sat through in silence. Every quarterly review, every strategic planning session, every presentation you bragged about. I was there. I was the faceless investor whose advice your team implemented, the one you ignored in person because you thought he was beneath you. Renee stared at the card, frozen. You were in those meetings? Every one of them, I said. And the same person you dismissed at family dinners was the same one funding your success. I pushed open the restaurant door. The cool Atlanta air hit like clarity after smoke. That's not just bad family behavior, I said over my shoulder. That's bad business. And I don't invest in bad business. As I walked toward the parking lot, my phone buzzed. Sierra, 4 new ventures approved. Total reinvestment, $125 million. Patricia, portfolio rebalanced. Apex position strengthened. Jeremiah, legal reviews complete. Ready for final signatures. I typed back one word. Proceed. The night was quiet, city lights reflecting off wet pavement, music spilling faintly from nearby jazz bars. I stopped near the valet stand, inhaling deeply. For the first time in years, my life felt aligned. No masks, no pretense, no explanations owed. The phone rang again. I answered without checking the caller ID. Miles, Renee's voice cracked through the line. The board wants to know what it'll take for you to reconsider. Name your price. There isn't one, I said. This isn't about money. Then what is it about? She whispered. Perspective, I said. For you, for Andre, for Micah, for everyone who judges worth by wardrobe or address. You all mistook quiet discipline for failure. You mistook patience for weakness. I get it now, she said softly. I swear I do. Then prove it, I replied. Not to me, to the people who look up to you. Lead with humility. Hire fairly. Stop confusing confidence with cruelty. Miles, she began, but I was already ending the call. The city lights blurred past as I walked toward the corner, the weight of the night lifting off me with every step. My next flight was Tuesday, to Oakland, where Apex was opening its first physical office. 17 portfolio companies awaited hands-on guidance. Real builders, real doers, People who didn't need validation from rooms like that. I paused at the crosswalk, looking back at Maison Solange. Through the glass, I could still see Renee standing at the table, her shoulders shaking, the glow of her phone reflecting against tears. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. Then I remembered the words that started it all. Still doing your little online thing? And I smiled, because now she knew exactly what that little thing was. As I crossed the street, the hum of late-night traffic drowned out the noise of regret. My phone vibrated once more. Sierra, final confirmation. Neurospan Systems CEO stepping down. Emergency restructuring underway. Patricia, public perception stabilized around apex. Portfolio net gain plus 8.3% within 24 hours. I closed the screen. Some would call it revenge. I called it arithmetic, the sum of actions meeting their consequences. You can't build a company or a family on contempt and expect it to stand. And you can't measure someone's worth by what you think they lack. Because one day, the person you dismissed as insignificant might turn out to be the foundation you were standing on all along. And that was the night the quiet one at the table finally spoke without saying a word. Miles didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The truth did all the talking. Because sometimes the loudest power move isn't revenge. It's revelation. It's letting people choke on the silence they mistook for weakness. If you ever needed a reminder that patience isn't poverty and that respect should never depend on appearances, this is it. The same people who laugh at your struggle today might one day need your signature to survive tomorrow. So keep building. Quietly. Consistently. And let your success answer the disrespect. Movie camera, if you felt that lesson, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what part hit you the hardest. Your support helps us keep bringing you powerful stories like this, tales of revenge, revelation, and redemption. Stay tuned, because the next story drops soon, and trust me, you won't want to miss this one.